This
Can y'all hear
conference
me?
will now be recorded.
Yep.
All right.
You have to turn on your mic and your video if you have.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first virtual monthly meeting. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Crystal Schmick, and I am the president. And I am super excited to try this out and get it going. If you missed my previous announcements, there is a chat feature. There's a little speech bubble up at the top on my screen. It's on the top right side. I'm going to ask that if you have questions, use that to ask your questions. You can ask everybody in the group, or you can just ask individual people. So if you could use that to relay questions or anything like that. That way we're just not all talking over each other. Judy, you're raising your hand. I only know that because you're one of the key to the bathroom. You're on your own for that, sweetie. Do we have anybody who's never been to a meeting before? I got a couple of no-name people on
Yeah.
I've been to a meeting here before.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi. All right. So
Hi, my name is Pat. I'm sorry, I'm new too.
Hi, Pat. I'm glad you could make it.
Thank you very much. My cat is coming too. I don't know how to get my name on the screen for you, but
Let's see it.
You should be able to get little notes on the top of who's talking, even if you can't see all of the screen. So after this is all said and done, I am recording this, and we'll be able to set up a link on YouTube. You'll get a link to a private YouTube channel with this meeting, so we can. So if you missed it or you want to go back and review something, it's available. But Lou will be sending that out. Diane, did you have anything you wanted to say real quick?
No. Do you want me to introduce the speaker yet?
Sure, because that kind of melds in with everything else we're
Did you have more to say? More announcements?
I can't think of anything. I'm gonna be really honest.
All right, so we'll just start with our speaker because the whole meeting is about helping everybody get over this super hot summer that we've had and what to do for fall and your fall rose care. So our guest speaker tonight is Les Haight, and most everybody knows who he is. He's been in our Rose Society since the 1970s, I believe. And he's been a consulting rosarian, ARS horticulture judge, and he ran a nursery in Green Valley until he retired. And so I will turn it over to Les to give his little talk and make sure in the chat section you can write in any questions you have for him as he's going along. If you have some particular problem you had this summer too, he could probably help you with that. So take it away.
All right.
Hi there. Good. Am I on? It said pause. Sorry. Yeah. I'm good at pausing. So my talk tonight is not going to be very long, other than questions. Our brutal summer, which Diane alluded to, is still going on. Back up into the triple digits again later in the week. It's been a nasty summer with almost no rain. I've had I live right near the university. I've had less than an inch and a half of rain for the entire monsoon, and I'm sure a lot of you are in the same situation. And rain doesn't usually amount to enough a lot of times for good watering. You have to have at least an inch of rain for a good watering. But you know, washes the plants off. It adds some humidity around the plants. It cleans the leaves up. So it's always good to have some rain. And this has been a non-soon instead of a monsoon. I can't remember a year that this has been as brutal as this. With the high temperatures and the high night temperatures through most of July and August, anywhere from 6 to 10 or 12 degrees above average. So that makes a huge difference. It almost puts us in the realm of Phoenix, which we don't want to be in. The watering has been almost nonstop. There are no breaks in the watering. I don't have very many roses anymore. I've only got about a dozen, and I've lost 2 this summer to I don't know what. Most of my roses are quite old. They are in containers, large containers. I water them every single day in the summertime. They can't go more than about 26 to 28 hours without watering because they'll start to wilt. In the ground, I would think that most of the watering through the summer should have probably been every second or third day of good thorough soaking. And I think a thorough soaking is at least 6 to 8 gallons per bush for watering. So if you're running on a drip system with a 1 gallon emitters, you're going to have to run it for 6 to 8 hours. And I know that sounds like a lot, but between the amount that is leached through the soil past the roots, what is lost to evaporation, and what the plants soak up, they will go through that much water at a time. It's also good if you do have a drip system that you have multiple emitters around your plants, 2 at least, and 3 is better. They should be probably 12 to 15 inches away from the trunk of the plant, not right up next to it. The root system is as wide and as deep as the plant is wide and tall. So that's why you're trying to get the water down deeper into the soil. If you have been running a drip system all summer long and not have had any opportunity to water or rain, you might want to take a hose out, turn it on slow, and flood the areas underneath your plants. It helps to leach the salts out of the soil. It makes sure that all the area underneath the plant is thoroughly saturated. Drip systems, the water tends to go almost straight down from where the drippers are. So if you'll deep soak water, it'll spread the watering out around the plants. There's lots of information in the Drippator this month about fertilizing, and that's the main thing we're going to be doing this fall is fertilizing. We don't have a show this year, so Lou and Diane don't have to do their heavy duty once a week feeding if they don't want to because they're not showing roses. But a good consistent feeding program is a good idea. If you just want some nice roses, since we're not having a show, even if you just use like Magnum Grow and some fish emulsion, and right now is about the time you want to put some alfalfa meal or alfalfa pellets around your roses. For those of you who are new, alfalfa has a chemical in it called tricantanol that is proven to be a root stimulator, and it also, the alfalfa adds some organic material to the soil and helps you get the bacteria going a little bit in the soil, which we need. So you can put that on almost any time now. I started feeding just this week with Magnum Grow. Yeah, if you're buying alfalfa pellets at the feed store instead of alfalfa meal, make sure you get the ones that don't have any salt added to them. They sell 2 different kinds. One kind doesn't have anything in it except alfalfa and a little bit of molasses that's a binder to hold it together. And the other one has all kinds of vitamins and minerals and stuff, and it has added salt, just like they put in from a lot of animal feeds have salt in them. And we've got enough salt in our water and our soil, you don't need to add in that. So make sure you get the one that doesn't have salt in it. Another thing you can do right now is you can top your pots off if as you go through this stuff with all the watering you do, the soil breaks down and it settles in the pots. A lot of times you end up with the top of the soil 3, 4, 5 inches even below the top of your pots. And even in your flower beds, you may have noticed a lot of sediment. So you can go through and add a little bit of soil on top of it. Lou's got a formula in there using Kellogg's Patio Plus with some peat moss and perlite added into it. And that the Patio Plus to me is about the best and most reasonable potting soil around. There are other potting soils that are probably just as good, but they're 3 or 4 times expensive. So, and I think Patio Plus is available at both Lowe's.
Somebody has a cell phone that's also, okay.
What was that?
Security.
Could be feedback from a cell phone that also when you have your laptop and then you have your cell phone on at the same time on your Wi-Fi, sometimes it causes that.
All right.
Am I back yet? Oh, there we go.
All right.
I have to look at it.
Go, you can go ahead and talk, Les.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. All right. One of the things they mentioned in the drip header Lou did and Diane is that they stopped washing their roses off around the middle of September because they don't want water spots on their foliage. And since we're not having a show, I would recommend that you continue to wash your roses off, cut down on the possibility of spider mite damage, and it gives them a little humidity. I do mine first thing in the morning, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I just wash them off. I don't use a nozzle or anything. I after 40 years in the nursery business, I got so I could do quite a bit with just my thumb over the end of the hose. If you're going to wash your roses off later in the day, make sure that you run the hot water out of the hose before you do it, because the hot water will burn the foliage. Water spots on the foliage during the hot part of the day will not cause them to burn. The focus point for a droplet of water of the sun does not make a sufficient center point to start a overheat the rose bushes. Pruning is done lightly, about a third of the bushes. Take out all the dead wood out you can get to. Try and get back into growth that's at least a pencil size or maybe a little bit bigger. If you're going to have to prune hard enough to get down to where there's no foliage left, I'd recommend you don't prune at all or very, very lightly. You don't want your canes to be just completely naked and exposed to the sun. So that pruning is usually done around the middle of September. Since we're not having a show, and a lot of people like to have roses over a fairly long period of time, I like to prune 1/3 of each bush 1 week, another third of it the next week, and another third of it the third week. That way you spread your fall bloom out a little bit longer. So, do the south side one time and the north side another and the east and west another, or however you want to divide it up into about thirds. When you're looking on it, so it looks like you cut a pizza in thirds. And that spreads your bloom out over a lot longer period of time. I usually don't talk with notes, but I made a few. If you're just going to feed with one basic product, the Magnum Grow is probably one of the best things that's been developed. I not only use it on roses, but I use it on a lot of other blooming plants in my yard, and I've been very, very happy with it. You can get 25-pound bags from Kevin at AAA Fertilizer, and the number I believe is in the Trip Hater. I think it's 574-0040, but I remember that from being on the radio on his sponsored show 35 years ago. But that's the only thing I remember. So, has anybody got any questions that come up? We had one question earlier, and it disappeared off my screen. Somebody said, is there a chance that my rose might survive even though the canes are all black? And I would have to say that the odds are pretty much zero. If you're going to try and save it, I would cut it clear back to just a few inches tall. Maybe throw some frost cloth or maybe an old t-shirt or something over the top of it to shade it and see if any new growth comes out.
Les, if you click on the chat, there's the bubble up there on the top right-hand side. There's several questions there.
Okay, Suzanne's working on that for me.
We don't have a bubble on our top right side.
Okay. Well, the first question is there a date or specific temperature when we do the fall pruning?
Well, not really. Usually starting around the middle of September. Our hot summer weather seems to be lasting longer and longer all the time. If it's still 105 or 6 or 7 in the afternoons, I would not prune probably, unless you're sure you have some foliage left on the plants that you can that will help to shade the parts that you underneath so that they don't sunburn.
Okay.
Okay, we've got the chat up now.
Okay.
Okay.
We're up.
Because
The next question I have is from Robin. How often should you use the alfalfa? I usually only use it in the spring and the fall. But it really doesn't matter. It's something you can put on 3 or 4 times a year. It doesn't burn. It's not going to hurt anything, that's for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
The name of the soil that I recommended from Taffy, that's Kellogg's Patio Plus. It's a yellow and brown, and it's in the Thrift Hater. I know they carry it at both Lowe's and at Home Depot.
Tom was asking if you prune off the rose hips.
The rose hips, you can leave them if you like them, but you're going to be pruning them off to get new blooms for the fall. They don't serve a real purpose whatsoever. So unless you're planning to grow some roses from seed, which most of us probably are not interested. I think Judy's the only one, sort of thing. So,
there's a question there from Army about can you use instead of Merit 75 WP, can you use Zenith 75 WSP instead of that? Because The merit has been discontinued at Do Your Own Pest Control. So
Okay.
she was wondering if
I
substitutes.
have not used Merit in years and years. I think I'll defer that to Lou if he wants to answer the question. I'm not enough familiar with it.
Well, I think what you do is when you're on Do My Own Pest Control, is www.domyown.com. They have, if you put on their Merit 75 WP and see what other similar products come up, because there's I don't know what the actual active ingredient is in that. I'm not sure. Les maybe knows what that is, but you know, like for orthine, it's acephate. So I'm not sure what Merit is, but I would check to see what is the equivalent to the actual product that is the active ingredient, and then you can make a good decision from there what to get, as long as it's deliverable to Arizona.
Yeah, you can call the company and talk to one of their salespeople to find out what they're substituting for Merit, because sometimes they can guide you better to what the substitute product is for them.
Okay, thank you.
For Pat,
Oh,
let's.
there was somebody who wanted you, Pat wanted you to type in on the chat, if you can, Les, some of the names of the products you were talking about, like what, we buy alfalfa meal, but you were talking about alfalfa pellets. Is there a particular brand that you use, or?
No, alfalfa pellets are just, they're a horse feed, horse fertilizer. And you'll have to buy them in a 50-pound bag if you go to the feed store. And it's, yeah, not horse fertilizer, horse feed. And you'd have to get a 50-pound bag. It's a very inexpensive way to buy it. Some places you can get alfalfa meal, and I think it comes in smaller containers. I'd be putting a good heaping handful around each plant and spread it around. Don't just put it in one little spot. If you're using the pellets, the first time you water them, they'll sort of expand and look like a big ugly green worm. And then the second time they sort of start to fall apart. And then but you'll have to hit them with water. Just having them sit on the surface with a drip system, they'll just sit there unless you get rain and look the same 2 weeks later when you put them on. So if you take the hose and wet them down, they'll start to dissolve.
Yeah, and one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to mix them in with the soil, because it'll make the soil hot. And if it's underneath a lot of soil, it can burn the roots, right? Right.
Okay. Merit is imidacloprid, and it's been around for a long time. So that's the chemical name of it.
You can type that.
Okay, tell them that I'm going to type that in the chat.
Lou was going to type something about Merit in the chat section for people to look at.
There's some new people that may not be getting the newsletter, and that's pretty helpful.
Well, everybody who's invited to this meeting are all current members, and they all got the newsletter at the same time, so you should be able to see it.
There's also a question about when to take shade cloth down.
When it gets.
Lou, go ahead. I don't use shade cloth, so you're on.
Okay. We usually put shade cloth up when it gets 90 degrees in the spring. And during the fall, we usually take it down after there's a full week of under 90-degree weather, because all the new growth, after you prune back in mid to late September or have that light trimming, you got some real tender growth coming out. And the beauty of having shade cloth is really evident at that point, because all the new growth won't get scorched, because we're going to have 100-degree weather in all likelihood until mid to to the end of October. So anyway, that's when we take it down, is when it's 1 full week of under 90-degree weather.
I've got a question up here that I can see. Is it a problem to have companion plants in a pot with roses? I have never planted anything around any of my roses. And it really depends on what kind of plants you're putting in there. Some even small bedding type plants can have a very invasive root system, and they may rob the soil of both nutrients and water that your rose needs. So I just never use companion planting or ground covers or anything like that underneath roses.
On that subject, if you do want companion plants in with your roses, because that is something that I do, alliums are fine to put in with roses, like garlic, green onions, chives, stuff like that. Those aren't going to hurt the roses, and they actually do pretty well in the same pot with them.
Okay, good. Yeah, and just remember that if you're going to put things like that you plan to eat, you have to be like Crystal and feed organically, and not use any chemical fertilizer or not any chemical insecticides or fungicides. You probably don't want to be eating those for dinner.
Hey, Les.
Yeah.
If you're going to do companion plants in a container, make sure it's a very big container, because roses typically do not like any root competition.
Right.
I mean, they're going to suffer. Anyone that's going to steal water and fertilizer. But if it's in a big enough pot, I think you can get away with it.
Yeah, if it's big enough, I'd say at least to 24-inch pot.
24 to 30.
Somebody asked if there's a problem mulching with pecan shells. If they've been ground up, they're probably fine. They take a long time to break down because they're so hard, and they may rob the soil of some nitrogen because the nitrogen is continually trying to break down the organic material in the pecan shells. So if they're really coarse, it may be a problem. Also, when pecans are harvested and cleaned, unless you're a really good cleaner, a lot of times it leaves a little bit of the meat in there, and that may tend to draw insects like cockroaches and crickets and things like that. So that might be a problem too.
Oh, Army, Lou put in what the active ingredient was for merit on the chat section, so you can see what that is.
Yeah, actually, the Zenith 75 has that ingredient as well. I'm just afraid to use these insecticides. I've never used them, but this time seems like the bugs like my roses.
So, well, I would call the company and just ask them, you know, what their recommendation is for a substitute for roses for that.
Okay.
Because
it's got to be the active ingredient.
Because, yeah, with that active ingredient.
It's 75%.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
With any type of controls for insects and things like that, you're always better off to start off with one of the safer, or not the brand name safer, one of the products that's safer to use than hit it with the hard stuff to begin with, because a lot of times you can keep the insects under control with something less than some of the more toxic sprays. Yeah, imidacloprid is the same as merit. So Zenith, yeah, Zenith also. So that's just another brand name that it's marketed under. A number of the over-the-counter insect controls by Bayer Corporation have merit in them. So that's one of the things you could use.
Someone wanted to know if there was an organic fungicide. Mary wanted to know that.
Yes, but it really depends on what you're trying to treat. If you're trying to do like black spot or powdery mildew, your best option is going to be neem oil. You can buy it as a concentrate and mix it up to a recommended strength, or you can buy it pre-mixed. But it's that's the best thing to use. I've used it for powdery mildew on my own roses, and it works pretty well. You can treat the entire bush, or you can use it as kind of a spot treatment for stuff like powdery mildew. But you have to do it like weekly until it's cleared up.
And you have to be careful using neem oil with high temperatures because it can burn the foliage back.
Yeah, because of the oil, you can do that. So it's best to do that either early in the morning or right at dusk when the sun's going down. Otherwise, you can burn your plants.
Have you tried using baking soda dissolved in water?
I think I tried that once and I didn't see any results.
Okay.
So.
Right. Plus, it's probably going to spot your foliage up pretty bad. So.
And the problem is when you water the foliage, it removes the baking soda. So.
Yeah, but the neem oil will stick for a while, which is why you use it on a weekly basis.
Okay, I have a question on here from Nancy. I know carpenter bees cut the leaves, but what eats holes in the petals? It could be caterpillars, it could be grasshoppers. There's a whole range of things that might be eating the petals. And harvester ants can take the petals off the roses, along with the leaves and everything else. We had problems in the nursery with the harvester ants, and we could follow the little green trails sometimes for several hundred feet from where they were stripping pyracantha and Texas Rangers and hauling the leaves back to their nests. So.
Hey Les, especially in the fall, you're going to find a lot of katydids, and they eat everything, the petals, right. The leaves. So if you find them, just slice them in two with your pruners and get rid of them.
Yeah, katydids, they're kind of a wedge-shaped, medium green, up to an inch and a half or so in length. And they, like Terry said, they will eat just about anything. So. Somebody asked about several rose pots. The soil has become very compacted and the water doesn't percolate through the soil. How can you solve this problem? One thing you can try is a piece of rebar and just run some holes down in and kind of wiggle it around, and then water it so that the loose soil fills back into those holes, and that'll open it up. Another thing that happens a lot of times is the drain holes get plugged up with either rose roots or roots from their friendly neighbors that are coming into the bottom of the pots. It's a good idea that if your pots have been sitting in one place all summer long, that you go out and push them over or twist them a little bit, and so that any roots that are coming in from underneath will break off from any of the local trees and shrubs. My pots are all sitting up on bricks, so I don't have near that problem, although in the past I have had fig roots that grew right up across the bricks and right up through the drain holes. And a lot of other things will do that. Many of your desert trees, oleanders, ash trees, a lot of them will run their roots right up into the rose bush. And you think you've watered the rose just fine and it looks perky for a few hours. And all of a sudden it's usually because it's got roots from some other plant in there. Eucalyptus are extremely invasive. So any of these trees that they'll go searching, shrubs will go searching for water. And since you're nice enough to give them a drink every day, they're right there.
All right.
Is there a way to repel chipmunks? Not that I know of. Maybe a cat. The worst ones are those little round-tailed ground squirrels that we have. And some parts of town have thousands of them. Some areas have none at all. And I don't know, other than putting some kind of poison in their holes, that there's anything that you can really do to get rid of them. You can try trapping them, but I'm guessing there's so many of them that for every one you trap, there's still another dozen of them or more around. You might try blood meal. Sometimes that acts as a deterrent. Sprinkle some blood meal around them. Blood meal is also a very good fertilizer. Don't get too carried away. It's 13% nitrogen, so it could burn plants if you get too carried away with it. It's organic, so it breaks down slowly.
Did you say oatmeal?
Blood meal. Blood meal.
Blood meal.
Blood meal.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right. All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
Yes.
Is it hang up and dry? My phone number in the here if anybody needs to call me. I'll be unavailable for the next 3 days, but if they have any questions and want to give me a call, just leave a message if I don't answer. And we don't have the phone if we don't know who's calling. So.
All right. Okay. That was perfect. All right. Anybody have anything else? No. All right. I am so glad you guys could all come in and try this. I know this is our first time. It was a bit of a learning curve on all this. We'll keep in touch, and if we need, I don't know when we're going to be able to do in meetings, or I'm sorry, in person meetings yet, but at least we know we can meet this way. Beth, thank you for doing this. I appreciate all the information you guys you shared with us. And unless we have something else we need to talk about, we're gonna wrap it up.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thanks for
Thank
setting
you.
it up.
Thanks.
Thank
you, Crystal.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
thank you.
It was good seeing you guys. Hi, Porter. Robin.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.